What's the worst attempt at an foreign accent you've ever seen in a movie? As much as I like Keanu Reeves, his attempt at an English accent in Bram Stoker's Dracula was absolutely atrocious. It was so distracting that it makes any scene in the movie that has him in it impossible to watch without the accent putting me off what's supposed to be going on in the film. Better if he had just spoken with his normal voice than the abomination of an accent that he tried to do. Also, Dick Van Dyke's accent in Mary Poppins is legendary for being one of the worst attempts at an accent ever filmed. Not the movies, but TV show Spooks, MI5 for the US, had to. One of the early years had an episode with religious anti-abortionists from the US doing things in England. The character was from Georgia, I believe, but nothing like that ever came out of any American's mouth. Ever. Anywhere. In a later season they had an Irish actress playing a CIA operative. Her accent was a mix of Boston, channeling JFK from the sound of it, Southern, straight American with a British A sound thrown in here and there. I looked online to see if anyone else was as horrified as I was, and someone said her accent was schizophrenic. I assume they meant multiple personalities. Why ever see Tim Curry in Congo, or his performance as a Soviet dude in Red Alert 3? The fuckest things ever. And somewhat ironic because in his seminal work, Rocky Horror Picture Show, he does an excellent job of copying Queen Lizzie's accent, to sound posh. Sounded natural and made the character more real. Not this but the other way around. Fargo, everybody has a Scandinavian accent and goes around saying JA all the time, except for Peter Stormare, Swedish actor, who speak with the perfect US accent, smiley face. Gotta love the Coen brothers. I love Game of Thrones a lot, except for the last couple seasons. I love Tyrion Lannister the most of all. But I did not like Peter Dinklage's accent. I felt it was just entirely too unauthentic. I don't know if he had a voice coach. If he didn't, he should have hired one. If he did, he should have hired a different one. I think in a largely European cast, his accent was just too obviously unauthentic and colored by what American actors always make British accents sound like. Edit, Peter Dinklage, if you see this, please don't be bummed. You were absolutely exceptional and played my top favorite role by any human on the planet, and no one can ever do as great a job as you did. Probably Brenda Blethyn in Saving Grace pretending she's her housekeeper and doesn't speak English. In her defense, I think it was meant to be terribly unbelievable because the movie was awesome and she was great in it. Any actor who has attempted an Irish accent. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in Far and Away, Julia Roberts in Michael Collins, Sean Connery in Darby O'Gill and The Little People, to name but a few. Have yet to hear a halfway decent fake Irish accent. The first act of Steve Jobs' movie, with Fassbender and Rogen, has Kate Winslet sounding perfectly American. From second act on, her accent completely changes. All of a sudden she has a kind of Eastern European edge to the accent. No amount of Googling can explain what the fuck happened. I can only imagine they asked her to change it, but never reshot the earlier scenes. She's a brilliant actor, but this performance is very odd. One of the hardest things about accents is cadence, and it can also make the speaker hard to understand. Many Asians and Southern Americans speak with a nearly continuous stream of words with pitch changes. It's not just the way you pronounce the individual words, but the way you pronounce sentences. The death of Stalin was actually the complete opposite of this, and it made the film really stand out. Instead of all these English-speaking actors putting on shoddy Russian accents, they kept their own. It added more depth and character to the roles. Khrushchev had a New York accent while Stalin was Cockney and Zhukov was a Yorkshireman. Not in a movie, but in most games you can easily see the way voice lines are produced. Someone just reads them one after one, and they record it, without actually having the actors do full dialogues. Imagine two guys. One speaks with a Scottish accent, another with an Indian accent. They never have problems comprehending each other and never adjust their speech to get the other to comprehend. Just watch the guy doing prank calls with voice lines from an American video game to Americans. See how they struggle to comprehend even the most common American accents from recordings. Not a movie, but in the TV show Friends. In the episode The One with the Football, S3E9, there's this Dutch woman named Marga. The accent is just wrong, and besides, she can't even pronounce her own name. Friends is my favorite TV show, but, being Dutch myself, this always bothers me. Does it count if there's no attempt? Case in point, Paths of Glory, Kubrick 1957. This is a movie about the French army in WWI, and not a single French accent, not even a neutral accent. They all have very thick Midwestern accents. Also, I should mention this is not a bad film. It's just super weird to watch something and halfway through realizing it's about the French army. Almost every time a non-Scot attempts a Scottish accent. The problem is that they don't try to imitate a real accent, but one from an American actor who didn't portray a Scottish accent accurately. The actors often make weirded growling sounds or talk too slowly. We tend to talk a bit faster than average here. Benedict Cumberbatch's American accent in August, Osage Country is so bad to me. I was relieved when it was much better in his role as Doctor Strange. The movie as a whole is not good to me though. The fact that he plays someone of below average intelligence marrying their cousin probably doesn't help. Have you not seen Kevin Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? Sure, everyone will bonk on Keanu Reeves and his lack of an English accent, but Kevin Costner mixed with Christian Slater make Keanu look like David Tennant doing Shakespeare. The movie, itself, isn't that bad. In fact, Alan Rickman really brings the whole thing together as the Sheriff of Nottingham. He's fucking brilliant, but Costner is just mid-American. Pretty much any time an English actor on British TV shows tries to do an American accent. No, I'm not talking about British movie stars here. There's tons of famous English actors who sound perfectly American. I'm talking about on a show like Midsomer Murders, where one of the characters of the week is an American banker whose wife is having an affair with her half-brother and killed their former nanny to cover it up. That character never sounds like a real American. Sean Connery giving the audience an Edinburgh accent whether the movie called for it not. Untouchables, Irish Edinburgh HFRO, Lithuanian Edinburgh Highlander, Egyptian Spanish Edinburgh, Whole movie is a mess of casting, to be honest. Dragon Heart. Who knew Edinburgh had dragons? Perfect for James Bond though. Not the worst, but every now and then a British actor playing an American will slip up and then I can't unhear it. Ruins it for me. Recent example, The Affair. Dominic West was mostly decent, but Ruth Wilson's American accent was terrible and I just couldn't finish the series. This bothers me more than when an actor attempts an elaborate foreign accent and fails. At least there I'm not supposed to buy that the actor is African or Polish. Didn't Sean Connery play a Spanish man in Highlander or something? I remember a stand-up comic making fun of it. Just imagine Connery saying "Como estes everybody?" Then there's Mickey Rooney's yellow face in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Complete with glasses, buck teeth, and accent. Finally, not a foreign accent, but the Boston accent can fuck right off. I parked my car down at the harbor, not paid ma cah down at the harbor. Look, I don't know how realistic it is or whether it fades gradually or not, as I've not seen all the movies with her in, but Wanda's accent in Age of Ultron prevents me from taking the movie seriously, mostly because I watched WandaVision before watching Age of Ultron and the accent is completely gone in WandaVision. I feel kinda guilty for not feeling much about that very emotional scene in Age of Ultron, but the accent just undermines OT completely. Not foreign, but Kyra Sedgwick had the worst fake Southern accent ever in her show The Closer. And Variety magazine bragged that Kyra worked with a dialect coach to achieve it. It was very overdone and stereotypical. On the other hand, most actors on The Walking Dead do a decent Southern accent. Even the ones from the UK. Mickey Rourke's Russian accent, Ivan Vanko, in Iron Man 2. I cringed at all the scenes in which he spoke English with a Russian accent, and especially so when he attempted to speak Russian. I understand that he doesn't know Russian, but damn it, hire a good actor who is both intimidating and can actually play the part. I hate to have to mention what may be the best TV show in history, but Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad is supposed to be Chilean, which is known to be one of the most recognizable Spanish accents/dialects in the world, but he just has a really bad American accent in Spanish. I watched episode 1 of Sex and the City for the first time last week. The show opens with a British woman who was actually Australian and not even trying to do a British accent. I guess they thought Americans wouldn't notice the difference. Apparently they were right, LMAO, because the show was popular somehow. Chris Hemsworth has an inexplicable Slavic accent for like 2 seconds in Black Cat and then it's never heard about again. Strange, since his character was an American-based hacker and there wasn't any real need to do any sort of accent. I love Bill Skarsgård and think he's destined for great things, but his Swedish ass has poorly attempted a Southern US accent twice, once in Battle Creek and again in The Devil All the Time. The first time he couldn't really hit it and kept slipping, and the second time he just leaned in way too hard. I recently caught American Pie on TV. It was the first time I'd seen it in like 18 years, probably. I can't believe any casting agent heard Shannon Elizabeth's flimsy, hodgepodge European accent and still hired her. Most attempts at an Aussie or Australian accent are embarrassing. The clone troopers in the Clone Wars animation and games, etc. sound like a Cockney bloke with South African parents who spent time in the Netherlands. As is often the case, American actors, in particular, tend to default to their idea of what a British accent is, but that is usually way off too, with weirdly inaccurate vowels and diphthongs. I doesn't rhyme with boy and smash doesn't rhyme with harsh, etc., etc. Chris Van Houten's exotic accent for the Red Lady in God. For a Dutch person, it just felt as if she was a Dutch person who had a heavy accent in English. While it meant to be an unfamiliar, magic, and incaptivating accent, as GRRM described, face with tears of joy. If you are talking about worst accent, it will be Kjoma from Steins Gate. That's because it was the whole gag of the series. I'm a mad scientisto, you son of a bitch. Most of the Southern and / or Texas accents you hear in movies are terrible and not even close. The closest I can remember hearing actors doing an accent even close to what they're supposed to sound like was the majority of the cast of Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors and Coat of Many Colors, Halo of Light. I don't know who she hired for an accent coach, but for the most part, they nailed it. My mama and her people have lived in the Tennessee Hills, not far from where Dolly Parton herself is from, since God was a baby, so that accent is one I know very well. It was cleaned up for TV, so normal people could understand it, because in its normal / native, I think that's the right term, form, it's mostly not able to be understood unless you're used to hearing it. Which I am. Despite living in Texas for nearly 50 years, she's retained most of her accent. I don't know if it's because of a Scots/Irish influence from way back, but the Tennessee Hill accent reminds me a lot of a Scots/Irish sort of accent. Pretty much every time an English speaker tries to speak in any Scandinavian language, the Swedish professor in Stargate, the movie, exclaiming, "Herregud, vad dead. Oh my god, what is that?" without expressing any facial emotions at all. Or the sauna scene with the Swedes in the second season of The Umbrella Academy. Swedish being my native tongue, I had to rewind and turn on the subtitles to understand what they said. Strange pronunciations and a speech pattern that is all over the place. To be fair, it's a good effort from someone who has no clue what the hell they're saying, but nowhere near the real thing. 90% of the cast of The Illusionist. The film is set in Austria, but I guess none of the actors/producers had any idea what that accent sounds like, so they just had everyone do a half-assed English accent or no accent at all. Same goes for the movie Red Sparrow, which is set in Russia, but for some reason half the cast is just doing an English accent. Whoever that love interest was in, I think, season 2 of Dexter. It's like she couldn't decide if she was British, Australian, or South African. Every 2 seconds it was a new accent. She went through like 8 accents in one sentence. Worst part was the actor was British, so she knew very well what a fucking British accent was, she just couldn't do it for more than 2 seconds. No one in particular, but the vast majority of American attempts at an Australian accent are awful. The simple fact they can't stop themselves from saying can't like can instead of like cunt is atrocious.